I don't think it's really a hot take or really even an interesting talking point to say that SpongeBob kind of changed after the movie. I'm not sure I can name a piece of media with a more defined golden era like SpongeBob's. Those first 3 seasons are legendary and iconic, and once season 4 rolled around in 2005, things changed. The writing team was different, the animation style was slightly different, the storyboarders changed, and partially, and probably most importantly, the creator of the show, Steven Hillenburg, stepped down as showrunner after the movie, passing the torch onto Paul Tibbitt, who had been working on the show basically since day one, but his role as showrunner really felt like it changed the vibe of the show altogether. So much shifted, and that's obviously really easy to notice now, but for a lot of kids, I doubt they even notice the difference. A lot of people I talk to even consider season 4 part of that golden era of the Bob, and I obviously wouldn't feel satisfaction in telling you you're wrong, but you're wrong. Obviously, you can like season 4 of SpongeBob, but it'd be dismissing a lot of creators' distinct writing styles to say it's just like the other 3 seasons. It's not. It's just really, really not. And that's okay, probably. But for 10-year-old me, it was not okay, probably. I grew up swimming in the golden era of SpongeBob, basically watching every single episode from seasons 1 through 3 as they aired, and watching the constant reruns in between. I probably have the entire transcript memorized of each episode from all 3 of those seasons. That's a good use of my brain storage, right? I say this a lot on this channel, but SpongeBob really did influence so much about myself, and I feel it was a really healthy influence. Early SpongeBob had charm, creativity, and most importantly, it had wit. It wasn't stupid. I mean, it was stupid, but it was strategically stupid. It didn't downplay a joke or simplify a concept because it was for a kid. It wanted me to understand its jokes and its wit, and it didn't talk down to me to do that. It's why I don't think anyone would argue, but SpongeBob's writing may be the aspect of the show that has aged the best. It's funny, genuinely funny. Even shows like Fairly OddParents, another Nick juggernaut that influenced me a ton, I feel hasn't aged too well in the writing department.
Thing as long as we're doing it for some idiot human what rubbed our lamb.
It's hit or miss, I guess, but SpongeBob is almost always hit. It's kind of like early Simpsons, it's just firing on all cylinders and landing like every shot. The first season of SpongeBob especially. That is some of the most impressively consistent television ever made by humans, I swear. So when SpongeBob's humor and writing suddenly shifted, it definitely threw me off. SpongeBob was more or less my entire being at that point. In 2005, I was 9 years old, hot off the SpongeBob movie hype presses, had the games, the toys. Actually, really quick, I remember getting these playsets when I was in Universal in like 2005. They were based on episodes of the show and were like stupidly cute and fun. I don't know what happened to mine, and I can barely find anything about them online. I wonder how exclusive they were. Anyway, so to say I was excited for Season 4's premiere would be an understatement. But after watching the first episode, Fear of the Krabby Patty, I couldn't help but feel something was off. And as new episodes kept airing, the feeling kept persisting. I didn't like them. But I liked everything SpongeBob related. It was weird. It felt different. The first noticeable thing was the way it was all drawn. It isn't drastically different, but I felt it was drawn by different people. Oh, probably because it actually was. But as a 9-year-old, it felt weird to notice because I didn't really know that. Also, it was not very funny. I think I remember enjoying some episodes and some scenes, but for the most part, characters felt different. Especially Patrick. I remember when the episode where he becomes like a super genius aired, I felt like I was being gaslit. Normal, not genius Patrick was portrayed as like brainless. As pretentious as this may sound, Patrick had like nuance to his stupidity in the first few seasons. It wasn't like he was just flat out stupid. He was intelligently stupid. He wasn't a baby in a big pink body. Anyways, these feelings towards the show were conflicting for me. It felt like this thing that I had a hugely strong connection to was kind of dying. And I'll be the first to point out that I know this came from an extreme case of bias. I was obsessed with SquarePants SpongeBob during those first 3 seasons. Of course I'll have a bias when the show changes. I'm sure even some of you watching will tell me season 4 was your favorite season, and that's fine and makes a lot of sense. But biases be damned, as a 9-year-old, I just really didn't find them entertaining. I was still unknowingly kind of giving the seasons the benefit of the doubt for some reason. I think it's because between the new episodes, they were rerunning older episodes, kind of reminding me of why I love the show so much. But this all came to a head with a specific episode. There was a song that played during the credits of the SpongeBob movie that I always thought was pretty catchy. Yeah, not Ocean Man, the song Best Day Ever. And they basically announced a special episode for that song. And not only that, they were doing a 99-episode SpongeBob marathon leading up to it, with an online voting system to rank the top episodes.
It will truly be the best day ever begins tonight at 8 and continues for over 24 hours.
All leading up to this one titular special, the best day ever, followed by the #1 voted episode. And I don't think I even need to say this, but yeah, kind of a big deal for SpongeBob hyper fangirl me. I remember just having my little CRT on all day, basically rewatching every episode of the show, even seeing episodes that rarely reran, like the Halloween episode and the Valentine's Day episode. It was so much fun and super exciting. As the final episodes closed in, I was so ready for the top picks. I basically had it all predicted in my head. I haven't really mentioned it, but I spent a lot of time using the World Wide Web, visiting SpongeBob fan sites and forums, not really engaging in conversation with people. I was like 9, but just seeing what others were talking about, like fan theories and Easter eggs and such. And it seemed pretty unanimous. Band Geeks was the favorite episode of that show, so I prepared to see that as #1. Well, it was 38, I think. Weird. Well, you know, there's a lot of classic episodes. #6 was the camping episode. But 5 through 2 were all Season 4 episodes. Some of the newest episodes as well. I was massively disappointed. Did people really think New Leaf is better than the camping episode? This just didn't really make any sense to me. Maybe kids just had recent episode bias in voting, I don't know. But it's fine, because we got this wonderful musical episode called Best Day Ever that was going to be the best episode ever. It was terrible. I'm not even going to sugarcoat this or leave you hanging here. It was one of, if not the worst episode to air yet. But let's get into it. I want to break down why this episode fails in every aspect and why it was the nail in the coffin for me. It was proof that a show that meant so much to me was pretty much dead, or pretty close to dead, like a zombie or something.
Take that, you zombie!
I'll take it from here. Die, zombie!
So the episode starts with what everyone's been waiting for, the song. I really don't have a particular love or hate for this song, by the way. It might be my favorite thing about this episode, but I don't know. Tom Kenny kind of goes hard in it, but the lyrics are so just aggressively cutesy and happy. It feels weird. It feels like it's almost a parody. But as we'll see pretty soon, I don't think the episode really has enough intelligence to properly understand that. That was probably too harsh. Nah. So SpongeBob gets up and talks about how this is going to be the best day ever because he's going to go to the Krusty Krab and work and practice karate with Sandy and jellyfish with Patrick. I'm not even kidding. This isn't like implied or something. He literally verbatim says he's going to do those things. The things he does on a daily basis. The things we know him for. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Wow, Dawn is dense enough not to get the joke. It's funny because it's everything he does every day and he's excited about it. And to those theoretical people that I just came up with in my head for the sake of this talking point, no. So, like, that would be a funny joke, I agree. But it isn't treated like a joke at all. No character makes a comment about it. There's no nod to the audience that it is a joke. For all intents and purposes, it's supposed to be taken at face value. If there's a joke that I missed that points to this being some kind of cheeky commentary, then f me, I guess. But if it isn't supposed to be taken seriously, then the rest of the episode's narrative falls apart, actually. Which it kind of does anyway, so either way, the actual kind of special thing that's happening is that Squidward has a clarinet concert at the end of the day that SpongeBob is super excited about, because all of his friends are going to be there. So just like that, SpongeBob gets going on his best day ever. But oh no, the Krusty Krab is closed because of nematodes. Haven't we done this already? But SpongeBob, just like that, plays his song with his nose and the nematodes follow him. But then he suddenly realizes he's late for Sandy. But Sandy is busy because her tree dome is leaking. Oh no! But that's okay, because just like that, SpongeBob plugs it with his karate glove. Woo! Glad both of those issues were, like, resolved in, 90 seconds? And he just leaves, I guess, even though I'm sure Sandy had another glove, and he could just use the other glove. Okay, whatever. I'm sure you're getting the picture of what's happening here. He goes jellyfishing with Patrick next, but Patrick keeps breaking his net. Oh no! Aww. And SpongeBob is super excited to use his new net, but since Patrick keeps breaking his, he lets Patrick use his, and then just kind of leaves again. I'm sure he has other net. Okay, who cares? But it's okay, because he's got Squidward's thing to go to. What was it again? Oh yeah, Squidward's clarinet concert with all of his friends. Squidward, the guy whose whole joke is that he's a stick in the mud that nobody likes, and he's bad at an instrument that he acts like he's this master artist of.
Yeah, we're with the pet hospital down the street, and I understand you have a dying animal on the premises.
He's having a concert, and all of SpongeBob's friends are invited? Ugh. I know people are going to tell me it's not a big deal, and continuity wasn't important ever in SpongeBob. Haha.
Right? Wrong!
SpongeBob didn't have story continuity, but it had character and writing continuity. Squidward was a stick in the mud and sucked at the clarinet because it's what made his character work, juxtaposed to SpongeBob and Patrick. Mr. Krabs didn't give a shit about his employees because it juxtaposed to SpongeBob's gullible trust in people. Patrick needed to act like he knew what he was doing because it juxtaposed to SpongeBob's personality as well. It's what made the characters bounce off each other so well. And you know, those characters could learn and become better people by the end of the episode, sure, but the lack of story continuity helped those jokes continue to work. If there was an argument to be made that Squidward got good at the clarinet, maybe, that feels like a let Charlie Brown kick the football argument. As silly as it sounds, Squidward being bad at the clarinet is integral to his character. It emphasizes his pompous, mightier-than-thou personality. He's pretentious. If he's good at the art he's so pompous about, then that joke is gone. When you start stripping those traits for the sake of some bog-standard story, it starts to be a lot less funny and work a lot less well. Sure, you can get the storyline about Squidward's concert, but like, at the cost of everything else, I'm not sure if that's worth it. Anyways, so Squidward breaks his reed and SpongeBob fixes it really quick and then tells him to go do the concert. And SpongeBob can't get in because he doesn't have a ticket. So we get like 1 minute of antics where he tries to sneak in, and then Mrs. Puff is like, "Oh, SpongeBob." And the guy is like, "Oh, you're SpongeBob? You're on the VIP list." And that's resolved. Glad that wasn't interesting or funny, or I would have wanted it to last longer than 30 seconds. I don't think I could write a lamer way to resolve that issue if I tried. And again, this contrived, frankly stupid string of plot isn't treated like a joke. Take, for example, the episode where SpongeBob breaks his butt, I Had an Accident. That episode isn't even particularly amazing, but when something is stupid or contrived, it points it out and makes a joke of it. A layered joke at that. The contrived way they get SpongeBob to come out of his house is that the gorilla actually comes and attacks them. And to add to that joke, the gorilla is an actual real-life actor.
I thought I was doing a pretty good job.
If you're Patrick, then who's that? A real gorilla!
And literally rips SpongeBob in half the second he comes out of his house. And they question why he's even underwater. And then the gorilla gets flustered and rides out into the sunset with some random horse.
George, they're onto us!
Let's get out of here.
And then it cuts to parents watching disapprovingly and shutting off the episode. It's layered and stupid, obviously, but you have a feeling that the writers took that stupidity and kind of generic idea for the episode and knew they couldn't just leave it at that. The point of SpongeBob's humor was its wit, like I said earlier. It's stupid, but it's sort of smart about it. It's not like it's this max big brain smart about it, but compare it to this. This isn't even trying to be smart or clever about it. It's just like a thing that happens, and you get nothing out of it. So while ignoring the fact that SpongeBob didn't know he was VIP and Squidward just like walked right in after saying his name about 10 times right in front of the guard 2 minutes before this whole thing happened, SpongeBob gets into the hall and the thing just ended as he sits. And he's pissed and he gets up and makes a stink, but this was supposed to be my best day ever. Which, I don't know, kind of feels selfish. If we're going for an actual moral here, this is mostly a normal day for SpongeBob. He's relying on his friends having zero issues to make sure his day is perfect. And when it's not, he storms on stage and tells some random fish to shut the fuck up. But it's okay, because everyone's like, hey, it's okay, you helped us, so isn't that like the best day ever, right? And SpongeBob is like, yeah, I guess. And then they sing again, and that's it. Then it ends. Wow, that was a short feeling special, right? Felt almost like it was only 11 minutes. Just like a normal episode length. So obviously I'm glossing over some things, but genuinely, truthfully, honestly, this episode feels like a tax write-off. It feels totally contrived for the sake of the song, ? I don't think a single joke works. The closest thing to a joke is that thing where he tells the guy to sit down, but it's just angry out of nowhere. That's the punchline. I don't even know why the dude stood up. It has this weird babyish energy to it, like everything plays out as if a 5-year-old wrote it. Nothing is surprising or clever, it's just the most milquetoast nonsense these characters could possibly be doing. And the moral kinda sucks too. Again, if it's supposed to be stupid, that's one thing, but it doesn't play itself off that way. Not sure if that's like a tonal issue or a writing issue, but the moral is your best day ever should be the best because you helped people, even though your plans got ruined and you're being kind of selfish. I really don't get it. It's definitely trying to have a moral. It just really doesn't make a lick of sense. This is such a weird direction because they could have easily used the ending to be like, hey, SpongeBob, don't you do that stuff like every day? And he's like, oh yeah. And at least it's this cheeky admission of the stupidity of the moral and the story. But that doesn't really work because Squidward's concert was an outlier, but he doesn't really word it like the concert is specifically what made it special, even though it very much is what made it special. So if he was like, never mind, who cares about today? Tomorrow will be the best day ever. It'd be like, but wait, Squidward doesn't matter? Which could be a funny punchline, I guess. I don't even know. I think this episode just falls apart at its seams. And it's been weirdly reassuring and validating rewatching this episode for this video, because as a kid, this episode actually offended me. Part of me was thinking, I was probably just an overdramatic kid who took it way too seriously. It's not that bad. But truthfully, I kind of do think it's that bad. A lot of people will most likely not share this sentiment, but I think being so boring and lame is kind of offensive to the legacy this show had. I said it before, but the writers and storyboarders drastically changed by this point, but they were more or less being given the torch in a way. And in my opinion, this episode is not just them fumbling with the torch, but almost purposely throwing the torch into a creek just to fill some quota or something. That was probably a terrible analogy. I don't exactly know why or how this episode came out this way, and there's not really any DVD commentary for it, but it just feels so soulless from a show that had more charm and character than anything else on any other kids network, I felt. There's a reason why SpongeBob took over the world during those first few seasons. There's a reason why, when it comes to memorable quotes and memes and shit, most of them come from those first 3 seasons. The show was made by people who understood the characters and how to write them. And if there's any episode of any show that clearly displays a complete misunderstanding of itself, it's The Best Day Ever. Oh yeah, so then the episode ended and the number 1 episode was Karate Island, some random season 4 episode that aired a few weeks prior to the marathon. Yeah, pretty sure this ranking was rigged or something. So yeah, that is the episode that basically killed SpongeBob for me. After this episode aired, 9-year-old me basically was like, yeah, I'm about to head out. I don't think I've seen more than a dozen episodes that aired after this episode. And there are so many more than just a dozen that aired after this episode now. SpongeBob was missing so much of what made me love it in the first place, and I kind of just had to accept that. As an artist and sort of writer of comedic character-driven art, I hold things like clever comedy and consistent character writing on a pretty high pedestal. It's honestly really tough to pull off well. It's impressive to see those first few seasons of SpongeBob handle it so effortlessly. I took it for granted as a kid, but after that season 4 episode aired, it all felt so much more valuable. It was so clear how lame it was in comparison. The marathon before it didn't help either. The most offensive thing is that they didn't even really try. There wasn't even an attempt to emulate what made the writing so good. It didn't even consider elements of the characters that make them who they are, the characters that we grew to love. It didn't feel as if there was any respect to what came before it. All of the nuance that made SpongeBob good was just disregarded to pump out some weird sample platter SpongeBob episode, and to this day, I still don't see that respect. I know the quote has been mangled with Hillenburg's opinion on the spin-offs, but even then, don't you think a show so focused and clever like SpongeBob deserves better than a Muppet Babies equivalent? Well, the people in charge don't. They only see dollar signs. And yeah, I know it's inevitable with popular media, especially kids media, but let me cope, man. And I know this is also almost like a 20-year-old complaint at this point. Plenty of people have exhaustingly expressed the exact thing I'm expressing in this video, and I hate to make these videos just ranty and complaining. Actually, who am I kidding? No, I don't. But either way, the main takeaway is, isn't early SpongeBob, like, so good? Like, regardless of what the show became, those original episodes are so excellent, and will always be excellent, and will always exist. They will always inspire me, and I will always say that they are some of my favorite pieces of animated media of all time. And while I barely recognize them anymore, SpongeBob still does mean a lot to me. The world that Steven Hillenburg created was born from an immense amount of passion and creativity. It was infectious and so charming. It's why, despite the totally different feel, it's still pretty iconic and successful. There's a lot of SpongeBob that will always work, but there's also a lot that only worked when the creator had his hands fully in it. He knew the world, characters, and tone better than anyone. He knew what worked and what wouldn't work. And honestly, it's understandable that some of that would very obviously not work if it was passed to other showrunners. But The Best Day Ever is just a great example of a show losing its initial strengths so hard that it feels like a husk of its former self, which just always hurts to see, especially when it's something as good as SpongeBob SquarePants. I should say it, right? Okay, fine. Best day ever, more like worst episode ever.
Boy, I really hope somebody got fired for that blunder.
I hate to make a video so ranty, but it had to be done. Plus, you guys voted on it. These are feelings and opinions I've had for like decades now. Oh god, I hate saying that. I'm glad I could express them, if anything. It was a weird situation for me as a kid. It was like the first I felt I was being critical of a piece of media I enjoyed, that I was critiquing things on a deeper level than, this sucks. I was thinking and reasoning with myself on why it sucked. So in some ways, The Best Day Ever was kind of invaluable to my upbringing. Huh. Maybe this is some secret meta-narrative ploy to help kids understand the media that big company conglomerates feed them more intelligently. Or maybe it was because of Best Buy's Best Day Ever gift card promotion that doubled as a DVD pack-in with special music videos and video game previews and more. Honestly, it could probably be either one, right?